to see how fast you can do them. So people get more respect towards what they read and see and use. And we have had that showed to us. So 10 seconds of his voice, or 10 or 12 seconds of his voice, and then just another public video of him and what you can do with that. And I mean, probably if you're super, super close to him, you can really hear the attonations. But imagine if you only get 5 or 10 seconds of that. And if you're doing a lot of other things, of course, you're not going to start to react the first thing you do.
And what was the deep fake that you exposed him to? Can you share this? Because I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, so he was basically saying hello to everybody, and then basically telling the employees that they will get fat bonuses. And this is during a time where we do more savings than ever. So,
yeah, but funny. Just to prove it, something that is believable but crazy, and then how fast and simple it is, because it really means that the threat surface area is huge.
Yeah.
Because anyone can do it. I mean, like, to imagine different ways how this can be exploited when it's that simple, yeah? So, and what was the outcome of the conversation, or where did it land?
Of course, people, even my tech people, who is really well skilled, still was very surprised how easy it was. Yeah. So I think when people talk about it, it's one thing, it becomes very abstract, but when you see it and at the speed, you understand how dangerous it can be unless you pay attention to the critical
But isn't this
content.
I also get another sense from when you do stuff like this, why experience-based learning is so important in this context, is that even people in our staff that are supposed to be data engineers and they're working on the normal IT stuff, and they're really, really skilled in all that, there is still a divide in terms of the cutting edge AI and how to work with that. And so even our skilled engineers that do our day-to-day data stuff can be humbled and should be humbled, because what we're getting into is like, okay, it's not only about this is security now, we need to manage that IT security. What is that all about? We don't really know. We need to learn. And it also means, for me, the broader context, what and how can we use AI anywhere? If it's so easy to do this part, is it us that also need to be very humble about this is new learnings that we all need to go on a learning journey?
I think so. I think the whole AI is a human story, and it's about learning. It's about exploring. And I also think that the time where we can be an autopilot is almost gone. Like, we have to be in connection and be on when we see messages.
So beyond in terms of what do you mean? Like we need to, all this that is happening around us, we need to actually pay attention to it to quickly, is this something I need to internalize now? We cannot just be an autopilot in relation to what we are, the old way of working. Is that what you meant? Or
yeah, absolutely. And I think whatever we thought was half good a month ago, give it 6 more weeks and it's not going to be half good. It's going to be good. Maybe not good enough, but good. And then it's going to be good enough, and then it's going to be super good. So this is a growth journey that we have in front of us. I think everybody has that.
So it's a personal growth, it's a team growth, it's an organizational growth where we need to be very open to that. What works now, or what doesn't work now, will work in a very short time, and one of them or many of them will change the game when you start doing it at scale.
Yeah,
this is a great segue into what we're going to talk about, which we put the theme scaling business in the age of AI, and this is one of those podcasts that I've been thinking about doing with you for years. We know we go way back. I'm going to introduce you now, Helena Hörnebrant, and we've had an ongoing conversation around how to drive change at scale since, I don't know, 20 years maybe, in different ways. I mean, like we've been in different roles in different parts of our lives, but that question has always been there.
always been there. How do you scale with people, tech, and enterprise or small?
Yeah. And so with that, I want to formally welcome you, Helena Hörnebrant. And I think we need to start with putting your sort of a little bit background in relation to scaling and all that in the context. So, could you just give us sort of the 5-minute version of who you are, what are you working on now? And a little bit like you've been working on this from OM to Nasdaq to Scania to Traton now.
Yeah.
So many different angles.
But first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here, to sit down and unpack some things together in a conversational forum. I think that's super important. That's how you learn most of your daily work and to really stay ahead of things. So I'm the chief technologist. I'm the chief information officer and chief digital officer. So CIDO at Traton Financial Services, which is really, it's really the financial services of Traton Group. And Traton Group is the commercial vehicle side of Volkswagen. And we have a number of brands, Scania, MAN, VW International, and Nextera in China. And my role here is, of course, to lead digital transformation, data, making sure that we scale the possibility of how we use data and data-driven solutions, how we lead growth in a financial ecosystem. And I think why I love this type of job, or the change of it, or the growth of it, or the scale of it, is really that we get to use technology to empower people. And that means that we need to strengthen trust between people with technology or data. And we need to also be much more purpose-led than we have been previously. And I think also intentional, given the speed of the technology.
But okay, so you're CIO CDO now in Traton. I think you had a COO role before in when it was called Scania Financial Services, or is that not the case?
No, in Scania Financial Services, we never had a COO role.
Oh, you didn't have the role?
No, we had operations and operational topics and all of that.
Okay, that's my mistake. So you had a slightly different role, and then before that, I think you've been working in several different functions with how to scale up things.
Yeah, so my function at Scania has been more transformation and operations, but very much in the heart of digital. And then also had the opportunity before that to be heading the PMO at our former CFO, or former CFO, used to be the CEO of Traton Financial Services. And then I really learned how to scale en masse and really figure out how to work in an extremely distributed company. I mean, we are, in that sense, very unique. So we are a large enterprise, and also with a bunch of smaller entities, a few large entities as well.
So this is going to be something we can circle back to during the pod, the flavor of scaling something enterprise grade, and where it has a big center in one way, but at the same time is very entrepreneurial and distributed in terms of a very basic, simple market out there, and we need to make it work for everyone.
Exactly. And I think the reason I could take on such a big challenge was really my groundwork I did at OM, OPEX, Nasdaq, and then also running a few of my entrepreneurial initiatives. To learn about that this is always people, and then a bit of tech, and then you can empower both an organization and a company with that.
So very quickly, this is back in the day when you worked in OM, what was the work then? Because I think that set you up in many ways.
It set me up in many ways. So I came in just when they formed the name OM. So it used to be Alfred Berg, and then it was OM, and then it was OMX, and then OMX Technology, and then Nasdaq OMX. And I worked on the institutional banking side of it. So really starting my first job to see how we can get a paper stock into a fully automated flow, and really learning at that time, how important the data was.
Yeah.
But also that speed matters and security matters.
Yeah.
And that to scale with speed, security, and still within good, healthy margins.
Because I remember, this is back in the day, but because you were literally going around the globe at some point and working with these projects, almost like, my understanding from it from the outside, like, okay, now we have a new stock exchange, we have we have a new client of us that wants to use our technology, and we need to onboard them into, at this point in time, very sophisticated ways of working compared to where they were at.
Yeah, exactly. So we've had a few institutional banks where we have really gone from fully manual to fully automated, and what that means. Yeah. And in the very beginning, it was more like, can I trust the system? You know, it was really funny at that time. Yeah. Today we laugh at it, but that was the reality at the time. And I think the most interesting thing was that we cannot work like the Danish does, or we cannot work as the French, or the English people couldn't work like the New Yorker. And today it's so standardized, so harmonized, everything. So now we argue more about how many times do I have to use the actual numbers and figures and really pinning in what I need. How many times do you need to pin down that? And how fast can you get to the stock exchange to broker a service? So it's really about milliseconds. It's even more than that. And the infrastructure and how close you can be to the service and all of that.
So has that changed a bit?
It changed a lot. Yeah. Speed in this world is something completely different to speed in the world that I'm working with at the moment.
All right. So nice introduction. So with that sort of framing, let's sort of look a little bit about putting a context on the theme as such. So I was thinking about, when you're talking about scaling, or we could think about the word industrialization as well, but I think we use scaling. So when you are trying to describe that as from your CIO CDO role and discuss this in the current management team, because then you're part of the management team within Traton Financial Services. If you go a little bit like to highlight how that looks like, and then how would you describe and discuss these topics then? If we start broadly, like.
Well, if let's start with what I defined as scaling, because I think that's where it starts. Scaling can be done in so many different ways, but I think it's how do you grow and it really grow impact of the business without growing in complexity. Because it's easy to just add people, systems, companies. That's just growing and growing with complexity. But at a certain amount of time or size or complexity, you can't really steer that in a systematic way. So I think scaling in a good way is really about creating leverage from your existing position and see how you can add off without doing adding too much complexity. And of course, in the beginning, you might actually add on complexity. You need to start somewhere, build a foundation, like you build a house. You need a base to be stable. Then you really need to look at how you are optimizing and scaling as the next, or expanding, as we would say, within Traton Financial Services.
Let me test. There's a couple of different ways how you can sort of lean into that definition. I will try one now and see if we're on the same path. So one story that I think we're coming back to all the time, which I think is about this, is how do we decouple revenue growth from OPEX spending? So basically, we want to build something that can take on more and more revenue. We can do more and better deals. But every time we take on a new market, we take on a new 1,000 more customers, we don't want to have a linear cost expansion of our OPEX. So this is what I mean, like scaling for me, or industrialization for me, what you are describing now is how can we get to a point where we scale and get more revenue, but the complexity doesn't scale, and therefore the costs is not following, or even to the point where it can go worse, that the more complex you are becoming, the cost is actually going out of hand.
It's going out of hand. And I think this is a balancing game, because if you want to move fast, you can't do everything at the same time. So you really need to build a fundament, but you need to fastly move over to how you can build it in a more scalable and less complex way. And I think what you're saying, if I translate that, it's really to not just go manually, add on intelligent methods, make sure that the organization is higher on volumes, sure, but smarter volumes. See that we can make sure that we have income stream coming in faster and updates, and we can handle that. And I think if we increase complexity, we also increase friction between people.
Yes.
So that's where we have the change really being tricky.
But okay, but before we move on, I think this is the foundational thesis for the rest of the conversation now. Another way of talking about exactly what you said now, and I'm gonna try to be more practical and exemplify stuff. So let's say we do a use case and we build a point solution around that use case.
Yeah.
And then that works, one workflow, let's say for sales. And then we build it in as a point solution. And then we are great. We are taking that point solution out to all the different sales teams all over the world. Fantastic. Then all of a sudden now we have another use case. And it's something for finance. So we do another point solution.
Yeah.
And what happens now is like, worst case scenario, you're starting with a pilot for sales in one market, and then you do a point solution, and then you do something slightly different for the next market in sales. So exponentially now, if you think about it, each new market becomes a little bit of a point solution, and then you add the point solution spaghetti in another dimension. So all of a sudden now you have exponential total cost of ownership. You probably have a complexity. I mean, like the sheer way of adding to this becomes sort of trickier.
Yeah.
So this is the point solution problem. That you get an total cost of ownership of operating this complexity goes out of hand. So this is one failure mode. Another failure mode, I would say. Oh, we have this old systems, and now we need to start from scratch with a massive data platform investment, and we put a lot of money into platforms, but no one is using them. There's just stranded technology. So when we are talking about scaling, for me, this is some sort of golden path.
Yeah.
How are we use case driven, finding it, but not ending up in point solution spaghetti? So we need to be business led, yes. But at the same time, we need to be industrialized in how we take things. I mean, like that's sort of summary. Yeah. Do you buy into that, or would you frame it differently?
Well, if I hear you, I mean, how do we really scale with well, let's start. I think we all agree that we need a value, right?
Yeah,
we need a value. So it doesn't actually have to be business. I don't care if it's business or IT driving, but I really care that it's a business value.
Okay, value, good.
And I also think that we should definitely build local use cases, and we have done quite a number of cool use cases, but it's really fast become like a pilot perjuring. We're just so happy about our sensational use cases, but we are no ability to scale it. So what we need to do is really to have a cross-functional team where some of them focus on the local use case. Some of the team members focus on really to get the value thesis in so they can adopt it. And then some of them are really looking at from the platform perspective. How can I create reusable components that we can use for the next and the next and the next? And I think that part is the number one. So we need to establish almost like two operating model. One that focus on the local use case, make that impact as great as possible for the local market in our case. And then have one that owns the platform perspective of reusability, but then also take responsibility for enterprise capitalization, if you will. So have somebody that makes sure that the next market and the next market and the next market is using it, possibly a bit personalized, but we can't ask that one market should think about 7 markets or 8 markets. We need to find a way that we have people that's smart enough to know what the other 7 markets need. So I think maybe 2 operating models at once, or even 3. if you're going to have the long platform story where we change the big platforms.
But the way I see this now, let's see, I'm almost seeing a graph in my head where on the y-axis we are talking about value creation. The use case, the workflow we are fixing, we need to go there and really fix real hardcore workflows in the business, which ultimately you go all the way out to one market unit and their particular workflows and fix that. The use case view. So this to me is the y-axis then becomes value creation. The other x-axis, the other model, so to speak, is that as we go and we are asking ourselves, now we have done this use case, how do we need to decompose or refactor that in order for this to industrially scale? That becomes the value capitalization, harvest and reuse storytelling. So what you're saying when you're saying there is one operating model, or there's one part of the operating model at least that works towards the use case to find the real friction.
And very short one, maybe 90 or 120 days. It should go really fast, really.
This is to prove the pilot in operation.
Yeah.
And then it becomes how do we scale this up, which is then the capitalization story.
Yeah.
Which, because it means then we need to have people and practices and ways of working to find the right use cases and to try them out in an innovation lab to make them fast to show what they're all about. Yeah. And then you need to have a way to continue doing those at the same time taking it home to the horizontal view. I mean, like, this is the vertical view of the value creation versus the horizontal view of investing in scaling and industrialization.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, absolutely. And on that topic, I think also we need to consider how we find the use case families. Because if otherwise it becomes just a smart ideas flying around, people feel extremely creative, let's do it, yeah. But we want to have, what should the Treasury Department really deliver? What can we help them to deliver? That might be 1 or 2 or 5 use cases. Or what does the sales need to deliver? What do they need to make better point sales with the customer or even increase the customer experience? So we need to really attach our strategy or the way that we approach our customer to these value streams. Otherwise, we become just a use case factory.
Okay, so you said one key word here really fast. You used the word use case families.
Yeah, or as Scania would probably use it as a value stream, or
so let's see if I get it right. I mean, like I remember back in the day, I was working, coming in after a large management consultancy, and they said, we have this use case. It's called profitability. Oh my God, that is potentially a use case theme or a use case family, because the way we can bring it down into smaller pieces is so many different ways you can work with profitability.
Of course.
So is that what you're saying? So you need to find what are the fundamental areas or levers we want to pull in order to, I mean, like, to have thousands of small product teams for each use case doesn't make any sense. But if we can group them in families or themes, that's what you were saying. Yeah,
with really leading KPIs, how we want to measure that company, and then rather have OKRs or sub-OKRs to really measure how to get there. And that's where we should find the use cases.
So the families, I mean, and we can have a different conversation on, I started to stop. I started to stop using the word use cases.
Good. Now you make me happy.
Because it detracts from the fundamentals of the core workflows in an organization where we want to create value. And use cases easily becomes a tech responsibility when the real value lever sits, and with the value capture sits always with the business as well, of course.
Of course. So we have to start from there. And I think otherwise it becomes just a big, huge backlog. People pick as they please, whatever makes them tick that day. And we need to really make sure that we are so customer focused that we don't do anything that doesn't bring value to the customer.
But now you're coming into data's core territory to think about portfolio modeling and portfolio organization, which essentially then, how do we create value lineage for what value? If I do this and this and this in the back end, it leads into what values, and in the same way then, what cost? So cost and value lineage is very, very hard to do if you have just a plethora of line items. So 200 line items, how can I create a lineage between, you know, platform investments and themes and stuff like that?
And so, I think a lot of tech people get so happy about the use case and the tech that they use to get there that adoption becomes very, very narrowed focused. And I would really have adoption take equally long time as almost the use case development of it.
So scaling.
And concurrently.
Yeah, so wrapping up what we talked about, scaling that is value driven needs to be some sort of sorted in families. Why? In order to have a portfolio view is one key area. And then we had the other key dimension of bimodal in terms of productizing value creation, the use case or the pilot workflow versus the scaling value capitalization. So these are some key words we are circling around now.
But I think we have possibly forgotten one important and possibly
probably more. Keep going.
Now you're being humble. But I think governance. We in big organizations like ours, we will continue working traditional, but we need to slowly move over to the new ways of working of cross-functional teams, and that governance we need to be supportive of. Reducing the time to market. We need to be supportive to use the money for the right topics and the right value. It's so easy that we become controlling. You prove to me your point instead of the other way around. So we need to see how we can set up a governance that's supportive for speed, quality, and value.
So are you in a way now putting a different, you're entering in the topic of scaling. I'm reading between the lines, so maybe I'm reading it wrong. that we need to think carefully about what has been the way to govern and manage scaling in the past, and slightly now other mechanisms or other ways of thinking about this is sort of, you know, this scaling topic, is it changing? You know, is it something we need to think about differently moving into 2026 and moving forward? Is this high on the agenda for everyone? I think it is, but is it different to how we thought about this? What were you trying to say here with the cross-functional and the governance? Don't we have that? I mean,
no, I think we have it. Some places we have it, and in some places we don't. But I think with AI and new emerging technology coming in so fast, we need to realize it's not a tech project as per se any longer. It's a business or a company project. And with that company project comes cross-disciplinary people sitting together to solve a problem. And we need to really make sure that they can work autonomously. And if so, they need a structure with a cadence that's right for them, but also with people that can make decisions the whole 1 to 120 days or whatever it is that it takes us to develop something. And I think systematic, disciplinary, but also mandate-wise.
But, okay, I hear in between the lines now that maybe what we looked at as scaling 10, 15, 20 years ago, you know, when I went back to university, we talked about economies of scale, right? And the whole idea around scaling was very much connected to efficiency. And we worked separation of, you know, division of labor. We become more efficient because we put all the business controllers over here, and we put all the tech people over here. And all of a sudden now, with the age of AI, or actually, we are actually talking about what scaling means in a VUCA context. You know, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And we are talking about scaling in a context where the invention rates of new technology we could use is something completely different. So to scale and be efficient now, we need cross-disciplinary stuff because we need someone with the tech expertise and the business expertise. So I'm sort of seeing in between the lines that scaling the way we went about and thought about it 15 years ago is slightly different to what you are sort of hinting at here.
I think so. The speed that you're mentioning. I also think that business is more distributed.
Yeah.
We don't have time to fix everything ourselves. We don't have time to focus, but also we're not good at everything. So we need partnership. We need to work in ecosystems, and that distribution of how we perform our operating models is both key for cost, but is also completely key for innovation. On top of that, our margins are getting reduced everywhere. And I think we need to have a new way of thinking about producing more on less resources. I'm not just talking about people, and not just doing more on fewer people and resources, but also smarter. And those two in the VUCA world with speed of technology development puts us into something completely different.
Okay, so let's summarize, because you said now we have a productivity frontier is an academic word where we sort of it moves forward all the time, and to some degree you need to be at the productivity frontier to be competitive.
Yeah,
and you can be a little bit behind it, and maybe and the productivity frontier now we can see is different in different industries in terms of how effective you are, how smartly you use data. This is one. So the productivity frontier is always going up.
yeah.
That's how it is.
And the expectations of producing more on less is there the whole time.
And do you need to be somewhere in balance with your industry on the productivity frontier? Then you have another concept next to this now, which is the innovation or invention pace. So the invention rates we see right now, especially in tech, like AI and data, where we're talking about doubling the capability of the AI in long tasks and stuff like that every 7 to 12 months. That invention rate, the difference of what could be done versus the way we are working at home, it creates a growing gap.
Yeah.
And that gap to me becomes a threat surface. Like someone, if you're not closing that gap, if you're too far away from the art of possible, someone else will go in there, and that's the new productivity frontier in your industry.
Yeah.
So then you have invention rate and you have productivity frontier, and then in top of that we say VUCA, which is meaning geopolitically and
You need to be resilient and
we
flexible.
need to be resilient and super flexible. So we need to do scaling from an adaptability point of view. We need to do scaling from learning and adapting new tech fast.
Yeah.
We need to do scaling from the point of view that we are questioning the productivity frontier. And the difference is that maybe we could, 20 years would define an assist and be quite stable, draw process lines, and then we work like this. And that would hold for 5 years or 10 years. And then we do a transition or transformation.
Yeah.
Now it's something that kind of moves
the whole time.
And then what is scaling?
Yeah. So the linear scaling is basically gone, I would say. Very few can do linear scaling on the long run. But then it puts more pressure on us on how to innovate as well. And if we put the how to innovate, we need to be much more with optionality. We want personalization. The customer has greater expectations, and with that, we need to be able to adapt our products and service offerings to the customer more. And that's not a chance in the world that you can be alone in that journey.
No.
So the ecosystem innovation is gonna just grow and become bigger and bigger. And for us, as a financial services, that can also be a product. It can be somebody else coming in and helping us. It can be somebody has helped this customer, and now would you like to buy that? So we need to both buy technology, we need to buy innovation, and we need to buy partnerships that actually do parts of the customer journey for us.
It reminds me of, we had the guy, Hugin from Riksbanken. He basically was standing on the barricades. I hate when we say buy, make or buy, the old procurement story.
Yeah.
He said it like this: everything today is buy to build. And what he meant with that is very closely related to tech, that we all start somewhere buying something. I mean, like, you don't go out and build your chip.
No.
Even if you go and buy a
Yeah.
GPU hardware,
Yeah.
you buy something, and you need to decide where in that stack should I buy,
Yeah.
then to build your product, your process,
Yeah.
your workflow.
Yeah.
And the whole, what he was so strong about that, and I love him for it because is so true. The old make or buy logic came about from procurement saying, oh, we shouldn't do our own software, we should buy a business application. That logic that doesn't really hold anymore in this distributed ecosystem world, and where we have data and we have AI, and where we definitely not going to do everything from scratch. But even if we buy the perfect, vendor, what are you going to build with it anyway? So it's a different mindset.
It's a different mindset.
And
It becomes the modular.
Modular, but also it says something on what you said now, how we build our industry ecosystem and partnerships by to build. I can take it all the way into an insurance product.
Yeah.
And we should build the brand, or we should build the meta product for this insurance product. But I'm not going to, but underlying here, I'm going to use Santander's core, and then you can take that story to data.
Yeah.
The whole buy to build or partner to build, I think is such an important lesson in this game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we even used to say that whatever is business critical, customer critical, we would do ourselves.
Yeah.
But we don't have that time.
Exactly. So even that is not that simple anymore.
It's not that simple anymore. So we need to find partners that might not have, for example, we have a fantastic distribution network that we can actually lure in, or we can offer one thing that they can't, or they can offer one thing. So we also talk then about different business models. How do we share that?
Yeah, but and I think I can also flip it. Buy to build also needs to be understood. If you say make or buy, we now we bought this fancy tech, so now we don't need to have engineers.
No.
Oh my God! So now even whatever you build, you need to still build something, right?
Yes.
So, but then is what is that something that is our IP or that is our flavor?
Yeah.
From how we do data products to how we do AI services to how we do governance to how we do financial, instrument, how we do product. So this goes into industrialization and scale. Don't think this is nothing you do alone anymore.
No. You're not alone any longer at all. This is an ecosystem. And I think that ecosystem scaling, so if we I would say even 5 or 10 years ago, we did organizational scaling. That was the thing. We added people more. We might have insourced people in brackets that were a lot lower salary brackets than we had, etc. But that's not the point any longer. We need to scale everything, including your ecosystem. And I think companies that scale internally with headcount and assets and capabilities, it's superb, but they can only get to a certain amount of speed and scale. So I think platforms, data sharing, open standards, really leveraging the network you have and see what you can do that's unique instead.
Yeah, and then the whole network effects. You can talk about this on commercial ground, but in the end it goes all the way to how do I share the data between two different partners? Hardcore,
Hardcore, safe and sound,
safe and governed, and all this. Before we jump into it, there's of course one angle we need to put into this. When we are now talking about scaling, we've already gone for about 40 minutes. Is it fundamentally different how to think about that in a large enterprise versus small, medium enterprise, or the startup hyperscaling journey? So are there any are there any distinctions you would like, when we are talking about scaling now, and we are of course we're starting this from an enterprise point of view, right? But do you think it's worth noting something, or is it the same in different ways, or how do you see that?
So I think it's a major difference between a large enterprise and a mid-sized or a small company. If we compare, a big enterprise have a very complex system to run, whereas a small one or a mid-size have a very adaptive movement. They can be bigger here, smaller there. It's not that big of a deal, the system of it, unless they're an ecosystem player. Then they need to know their ecosystem. In a big corporate, we need to rely more on processes and governance. Small companies also need governance, but they can actually, through relationship and energy and engagement and positive reinforcement, really get people to move in the right direction. We, in a big company, we focus a lot on alignment. And I know everybody is like, oh, this amount of alignment that we actually do is crazy. So politician or not, we're doing alignment a lot of our time. Whereas in a mid-size or a smaller company, you focus more on engagement. And of course, in a big company, we need to focus on engagement as well, but there's not enough time for you to engage in everything, so you need to be more on an alignment basis. I think a big company or enterprise, you can't perform large scaling or changes unless you do it per design.
Okay.
Whereas in a small one, you just change by doing. Just learn, just do. In my setting that I have today, we have 65 plus countries all around the world. We have a lot of legal entities. We are maybe...
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
No.
Can we say something about how big is the portfolio of Traton Financial? Is that official or official?
Yeah, of course, there's official, but it's quite uninteresting. But we have.
No, it says something about the scale we're talking about.
Yeah, we have many millions.
No, it's more than millions.
Yeah, it's billions, of course.
But
what I meant is that...
we can't talk about that, maybe. No.
Of course, we can talk about it, but I just mean that in this context, it's more interesting to know that we basically doubled and tripled in the last number of years. We have, in that, we have also had the business going on in very small and mid-sized cells out there.
Yeah, so
and they are really leading us. They are making the business out there.
And they're small out there while you are big at home at the same time.
Yeah, so we have about 20 large companies, and the rest are a tail of 40 plus companies. So that's a really small one. And I think that by that, we actually have both the large enterprise and the mid-sized and small company. So if I go out in the small company and I start to talk to them about only policies and processes, I drive them crazy. They want to do like, what do we do now? How do we do it? Are you going to be engaged? How much energy are you going to put into this? We can run this on our own, but we need your support.
But I think this is so important to understand how to game this or play this or navigate this, whatever word we want to use. A central muscle, which is quite large, but in reality is very much an organization hub and spoke in terms of you have a central approach, but then when you get out to the legal market in Peru,
yeah,
it's a very fairly small office.
It's a very small office that we have at Financial Services. And I must say that a lot of our people up there, they're really heroic in so many senses. They do so much with being quite a slimmed organization. So they need to be good at many things. Whereas if you're a large corporate and you're on the head office or that, you need to be quite specialized in order to do your
yes,
task.
So you're scaling to take this traditional ERP style management consulting going into a large American standardized bank and just going the same for all. It's not the same ball game here because, okay, how many markets are you in? 60 right now?
No, we're 65 plus.
65 plus now. So, and we're talking loan and lending and insurance.
Yes, we're talking that. We have other products
but
but the majority of our products is that. But we have some more sophisticated.
Do you call yourself a bank or not?
No, we don't.
You don't call yourself a bank,
but of course,
right?
We have almost 70% of our flows are in regulated business units. We do have bank status in one or two of our companies, but we are a credit institute.
You're a credit institute, but it's the interesting point, like if you compare yourself to a lot of credit institutes are strong, one in the Nordics, one in Sweden, and even really, really big ones don't operate on 65 markets.
No, we are one of the biggest in the world.
In terms of footprint like that.
Yeah. And that, of course, is part of our great, think global, act local kind of business. but the rest of the market is going the other way around. So when we are meeting our partners or ecosystem players, they want to have a centralized, and they don't understand. I mean, my boss business model is built on very central companies, large size and portions. So they look at the enterprise level and then don't realize that we have a lot of small companies. So this is really the area where I've been most challenged in my life, because you need to really balance this in a good way. And I think in that sense, if you look at how we did our carve out in that means that there's a lot of companies we need to do carve out. It's a lot of entities we need to carve out, and we just added 4 new brands to our financial services. So that journey has been really laying out the foundation. Now the next step is, of course, how can we optimize this? How can we move in the direction?
But here you went quite fast on something which is, from a scaling point of view, quite interesting. So let me see if you correct me if I misunderstood. But as I understand it, the starting point here is Scania Financial Services, where basically you're doing loan and lending and insurance for one brand. And then how the other brands, even if they were owned by Volkswagen and Traton, how they did insurance or lending, that was completely 4 different ways. And then basically
even more than that.
But then you basically legally shaped Traton Financial Services. I think you went operational 23 as a legal entity, where basically now you have a strategy where you have a core center. This is the enterprise view, who are not only serving one brand, but 4 or 5 brands. And those footprints of those 4 or 5 brands, who is in 65 markets, is a little bit different. But, so you go to one country where you might serve 4 different brands.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you exponentially boom.
Yeah. So the whole point was, so we have been really successful as Scania Financial Services. The other brands have had also successful Scania Financial Services, but not to spread, and they've used partners or white labeling or other parts of it. And we thought, instead of going 4 different ways, if we go one way, we will be stronger and really cherry pick what's best in each of these financial services. And so in less than 2 years, we added on 20 entities something and 4 new brands. And we really did a huge transformation from a technology perspective, but also a legal perspective. So what was really chaotic in the beginning is now more and more taking shape. So now that we've come so far, and I must say that doing this much in 2 years or 2.5 years is at the same time as we're growing, was one of the toughest challenges that we had. And I think all of us leaders in this had to reinvent a bit ourselves on how to do the steering and how to go about the problems we had every single day on that. But we are here to solve problems. So that for me is a positive thing. And I think what we were used to, apropos scaling, was that we design something and we go there and it takes a lot of years and all of that. And now we just forced everything over to get the platform straightened out, the legal platform, but also the technical capabilities of that. Now we need to take the next step. How do we scale to optimize the structure and grow in even smarter way than within the guardrails of EBIT and return on equity?
Because now you get to a point then, if you're not taking, this is the point. Now you've done some parts of the scaling, but back to the way we started to scale, we decoupled OPEX to scale without adding complexity. That's the whole journey now, where you need to sort of both now innovate with new products, but in this new context, you need to be very, very careful to not add more complexity. So it's really an interesting game.
And we certainly did add complexity, especially on the technology side.
Step 1,
step 1.
No, you didn't add, but if you put 4 buckets into into one big bucket, of course it's when you look at it next to, I mean, the same complexity was just distributed before.
Yeah, exactly.
So no one saw it, right?
Yeah.
But then you pull it all into one bucket.
Yeah.
Now you have some industrialization left to do, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also it's time to cherry pick. What did we do good in one country? And even if we use Traton Financial Services as a base, for example, in Mexico, we used International. They were way further ahead.
So as a market unit.
Yeah. So there's other countries that's been much further ahead and more smarter than we in some markets. So we have learned. We have really, really put the learning on. And I think, but from long planning cycles to always do the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. And I think that's really the new way of thinking. And I think next decade of that is we're going to have to experiment, and maybe experiment is a provocating word for some, but at least test, learn, analyze, test, learn, that cycle and iteration will go the whole way through. And I think what we see when we don't do that smart with data, for example, we see that we can't reach and anything that normally felt, I can just take up my computer and send an email or even book a room wasn't possible because we were on different tenants. We didn't share the same data and all of that. So that part we have done in certain other countries, but not all of the countries.
All right. So the way the conversation is going now, I'm gonna give you. I have two things I really want to go deeper on and discuss with you that I think is quite helpful, also for the listeners as a learning point. So I have one topic where I know, since we've been talking about these topics over the years, you and me, in different ways, we've been fine-tuning our keywords or things that we think are super important that we want to distill into our organizations and our projects, how we work. So I call that sort of keywords and principles that are sort of, when you're moving into scaling in the VUCA world, that has been the core problem. And now we, what works and doesn't work. So these are the core principles or keywords that I would like to elaborate with you on, because I've stolen from you. I think I gave you a couple over the years. And so this is one angle to go down that route. The other route I think would be very helpful is to take a concrete example and try to think about what we've said so far. I see some sort of golden path between the value creation and the value capitalization. You call it bimodal. So bimodal for me is the golden path to balance those two dimensions. So either we take an example or we look at some of your key words and principles. I think both of them are very helpful to sort of start pulling this down into more concrete levels. But which order should we take them, or which one do you feel for most of those two angles?
I think we need to start with some of the words so people kind of reflect on those. So
and then we bring them with us into example. Perfect. So, I will test you from memory. This is from memory a little bit. I love, I'm just going to write them up. I love how we talk about pull and push. I use that a lot. Change by design or systemic design. I call it systemic balance change, blah, 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 years back, if anyone looks at my pod. So systemic design, change by design. Then we've talked about discipline and perseverance, trust. And now lately I've, agency and autonomy and those kind of words. Okay, so this is some your words, some my words.
Yeah.
Okay, if you would summarize your kind of principles or key words, what is the list then? This was my give. You don't need to take mine.
No, but I think that first of all, I think what we talked a lot about is systematization.
Yeah,
and that's the corporate view of it, and the personal view of it is discipline.
Okay, elaborate here first.
So systematization is really to see, even if everything changes around us, even if we have a new target, is the constant moving target, we have a market that is changing all the time, we always going to find common denominators that we can use the whole time and systemize through processes, maybe tools, or the way that we engage with each other. That type of systematization, so we can trust the way that we are doing it.
Let me try one. Years back, we had a conversation where I said, no, you need to build the engine And you said, no, you need to build a muscle. And what we were talking about was the same idea of systemization around innovation to adoption and scaling. So the world around us is shifting. Everything is coming, and all of a sudden we could do this, we could do this. So having a systemization of how we take invention and see how it fits use case, and then from use case systemize to platform. This to me is systemization, both in the core principles how we scale, but also systemization in innovation and design and change.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking
I
about?
think so. And I think we have often referred to it as trust the process and just stick to that. But sometimes systematization allows for more elaborative processes. So you can be really using the process more in the beginning or less in the end, or however you want to combine it. But systematization is really about how you go through it and where you normally see where you get stuck, or where you normally find your best ways forward, or how you as a team solve it even better if you solve it in the morning and not in the end, or you put hats on, negative and positive hat, whatever it is. So systematization for me is a bit larger than the process. It's how you approach it.
Yes.
as well.
Okay. Let me now try, because we had this conversation with Matthias Fras at Nordea. And he put it like this, and I think we're talking about the same stuff with other words. In the bank, Nordea in this case, we've done a lot of good work to figure out our customer journeys. We are quite digital, quite work. But when it comes to the employer journey, or even more important, the innovation to adoption journey, it's really unclear. And now with AI, who should I talk to? It's so much legal uncertainty. So here is what I mean with systemization. You need to educate and create clarity on what's the way we approach things. So when you say trust the process can be misleading, because we are not saying there's one process that rules them all. No, we have a process around innovation and governance. So we have a systemic way to bring new things in. We have a systemic way to flick on AI. We have a systemic way. So we're trusting that we are not, so we are governing. It makes us smoother, but it also makes us more risk conscious and all that. So this to me is systemization, which is hard, right?
It's really hard.
Because we're muddling through on that, and we're educating people on the tech, blah, blah, blah. But we're not educating, we don't have an educational clear view on systemization that we can teach.
No, I agree with you. And that approach also, if you take it from a personal view, becomes a discipline to our leadership principles or our guidelines on how to approach a problem. And at Traton Financial Services, we're using a lot of the principles. All the day we try to really break it down. And I think that becomes even more important when it's ever changing. And then we come over to the change by design, or continuously designing.
Okay,
so
go here now.
If designers used to be some extra and cool for customer journeys and others, they now become central, because it's going to change even in the process of those 90 and 120 days sometimes. So every time you come out on the other side, we have slightly changed the picture. So the big target picture is changing. And I think that continuous design and redesign, you have to get used to that and be curious and even happy about it. What's next? How is that going to look like? Why is it changed?
Okay, let me take my spin on what then. So you said continuous design and continuous redesign. And I can go into my rabbit holes of Derek's IP here, but it starts somewhere of the fundamental understanding that there is no stable process anymore. They don't exist, because as soon as you start drip feeding new data, new machine learning, new things, you are continuously tweaking the process. So you're continuously changing a little bit like how people work or what we do is at that pace. And that whole field, I even had that on Data Innovation Summit in 2020. We had that mantra, process becomes product. And what we mean with that, we need to approach our core workflows as they were with product thinking of continuous design. Like no one in the right mind building software today has one product and do a release every 3 years.
No.
That's we do continuous DevOps. We do CI CD.
Yeah.
We used to release new things all the time.
Yeah.
And we need to actually get our process view and our organizational view to live in that speed, in that cadence.
I agree. And what we call continuous improvement is a superb word, but we used to take only small steps. Now those steps have to be bigger, and you have to actually like them bigger.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it's correct, but I've been when I've been trying to distinguish what do we mean with continuous design compared to continuous improvement, I also talked about perpetual 5-6 years ago, I used the word perpetual innovation on stage, where continuous improvement, for me, frames it, we need to innovate within the game we know.
Yeah.
We need to innovate within the process we have. And we are doing lean, but the frame is the process we have.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now in the ecosystem world, all bets are off.
Yeah, bets are off.
You can innovate in every single direction.
Yeah.
So you need to take a more continuous improvement. For me, belongs in the process world. Continuous design, perpetual innovation is the product thinking.
Exactly.
And why do we say product thinking? Okay, so continuous design now becomes really, really tricky if you have a very long chain and a very hard-coded things. So here now we start modularizing in order to everybody as a cell can have a product thinking with clear APIs, so to speak, to each other.
Yeah.
Then they can do continuous innovation. Because if you have that very, very long, hard-coded process line in ERPs and whatever, then it's tricky to do continuous innovation, because as soon as you pull in the one end, the knock-on effects is massive, right?
It's massive. So here I think we come back to the next word, and that's trust. And what we used the trust before was like, oh, we have one cool strategy, everybody knows it, now let's run to that. But today that just is more of an ambition and a North Star. And then you need to trust the people you have around you, that they help to redesign and design, which means that you need to trust the people, that they are competent enough to make it in the speed that we're doing, and trust the way that we are working, the common denominator, because you don't know the result all the time.
Okay, this is huge, because now we're talking about trust from the dimension of, in order to go into someone and say the way we have done it can be done better, requires psychological safety within the team and with your interfaces, that I'm not banging on you.
No.
I'm just wanting us to do it better together.
Yeah.
So then you have the fundamental trust and what is so high to the ceiling, högt talks, we say in Sweden, in order to look at things that could be better without people getting defensive around stuff.
Exactly. It's not personal.
It's not personal.
It's just it requires completely different to go in exponential pace than to go in a lot of better pace.
Yeah. Okay. So that is super clear. Now let's do trust and discipline together, because what happens now, if we are working in a cellular fashion, the major risk with doing that is complete anarchy and fragmentation and siloed behavior in this. Whatever becomes these network effects. Yeah. It's all about how we are trusting and disciplined in how we treat the system and the interfaces. So you need to have extreme disciplined thinking on system thinking, and you need to trust that we are federating these together. Yeah. We are co-creating these together. Yeah. As soon as the domain, if I use that word, saying that the central platform team is shit, and we can do it on our own. The whole thing falls apart. Yeah. The discipline to follow the patterns that allow data sharing, as an example. The trust that you do your part, I do my part. Yeah. If that's not there, you don't get any intelligent mesh.
No, you don't. You don't get intelligent mesh. Architects and designers and facilitators become one of the most important roles that we have.
But then leadership in terms of what you said, discipline. If everybody's allowed to use their own data protocols, because they can be a little bit smarter over here, but we had those principles, and we were supposed to trust the central team to do their part, and we can do our part. Yeah. If the trust and discipline falls out of the door, the modular approach falls out the door.
I know. So the leadership today is really about marathon.
Yeah.
And it's ultra marathon.
Yeah.
and we need to really make sure that people walk that walk together and have the talk together. Because when we don't do that, people start to, the North Star keeps us from having results that's fragmented.
Yeah.
So if you facilitate your North Star and break that down, you shouldn't get fragmentation. You should actually get a common journey.
So systemic change by design or continuous redesign, trust, discipline. You cannot do modular without those things, in my opinion.
No, you can't. But I also think what we have discussed in between all of this, without putting words to it, is that if we are now scaling in an ecosystem of cells, we need to make sure that those cells can work autonomously.
Okay, that's the next keyword here, right?
And if we do that, that will provide not only speed, but intelligence within that cell. So we need to follow the pattern on how to connect the cells, APIs or data sharing, or even cybersecurity, how we share things. So we need to really provide stability in that. We do that with architects and designers and others and facilitators and North Stars. But we need to be disciplined to work as a team and follow that. So we get the big brains on it. Then we get intelligence and speed. And I think we can only do that if we have enough mastery in that group.
Okay, so now we're going into those things. We want to work modular, but to work modular, you need to now add the word autonomy. Now we need to break apart that word autonomy so we don't end up in fragmented anarchy. And we need to look at what creates speed and autonomy within that. So let's take that slowly. So one, you added trust and then you went to autonomy now. My first angle on autonomy is that it's one of those words that are misunderstood.
Yeah.
And basically people are misusing autonomy for sovereignty or anarchy. So they say, oh, I'm autonomous. I have autonomy, but they want sovereignty. A simple way of understanding autonomy is, I think, your child in school is an autonomous student in that classroom. But autonomy means he needs to follow protocol and needs to act and behave in a certain way. This is number one. So you're always autonomy in a context where you need to align with others. So the word autonomy, I know Spotify talked about, we need to have aligned autonomy. Aligned autonomy is actually surplus for the word autonomy means something already.
Yeah, I agree. If it is aligned already.
The word autonomy infers, you cannot be autonomy without the context that you're autonomous in, okay? But fine-tune, okay, aligned autonomy. The next dimension of autonomy, how you get autonomy that works, is these feedback loops. So if you we are working autonomously, but you are not, so when you're in a classroom, you get feedback from your students, friends, and your teacher, how am I behaving? And the same way is in a system, in Traton or whatever, am I working more efficiently? Is my work in that part of the chain making the other guys more efficient? And this is sort of then feedback loops that needs to go the chain of down to things that you need to take care of, but also feedback up or somewhere it doesn't work for me. Yeah. So autonomy is fundamentally built with feedback loops. Yeah. And feedback loops in the age of AI is encoded data. So it's not. So it starts with feedback between people. So then we have the team humanistic. I can say Scania works not from a structural capital, but from its human capital. Then I'm referring to these feedback loops really work well in Scania humanistically. Yeah. That story needs to be translated into code and data.
I agree. And even if you take it so far as you go to one of our markets, feedback loop can actually be transparent reporting.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what we are actually inevitably talking about is learning how to get to where we want to go.
Yeah.
And then working with access of knowledge, working with learnings, adjust. And for people to do that, they need psychological safety. And they need engineering cultures that improvements are really good. Deviation, love deviations.
But you said something now with autonomy, and I went down the rabbit hole of feedback loops, but then you said another key word. In order to have autonomy within a team to move with speed, you also need the mastery. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think mastery is the urge to get better of something that matters. So if you are a cross-functional team, you need to bring in the mastery of your specific topic, but in the structure of what you're creating. So if you're creating within a small cell, all people, whether you're 3 or 5 or 8, you should know the end-to-end flow. And you should know exactly one of your perspectives even more than the others, but you should know how they interact with all the perspectives. So it's mastery of flow and mastery of your domain.
Okay, so profound. I think let me riff on that and see if we end up on the same place. I riff on it because for me, you said one way how you can talk about this and find if you want to read more on this is about being T-shaped.
Yeah.
So T-shaped means that we have a coherent understanding and communication within a team for flow, team flow.
Yeah.
But then because we are in such a more complex world now where someone needs to manage and know the domain competence, someone needs to know the data management part, and now we're going to put an AI agent in here. So whatever we have now is at the smallest quanta, in my opinion, a cross-disciplinary team, and therefore the team needs to have mastery. And in order to have mastery, we have to have a mastery of the common sense flow, the discipline here.
Yeah.
The psychological safety to work with people who are not the same as me. And then having the credibility or depth in one of the things I bring to the table.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the same thing?
Yeah, we are talking about the same thing. So I think if we take it, because the words, of course, neither you nor me has made up. I mean,
this is Daniel Pink, for instance, right?
Yeah. So the Harvard professor. So I think we use different words even before we came to these words. But I think what he found out is that if you have purpose or North Star, you have a group of people that you work with autonomously, and you have a mastery that you contribute with both as a group, end-to-end flow, and yourself. You actually are in your best position to deliver as a high-performing team. And you bring value to yourself, and you bring value to the team. And I think that that's something that we need to work, because if we're going to scale what used to be purpose before, I put this in, this is what we're creating. And now we're saying whatever you are creating, it's going to change and change and change and change and change. So your purpose can't be that. Your purpose needs to be belonging, needs to be learning about new things. It needs to be contribution, right?
I fully agree, 100%. And now here's one of the
Don't agree all the time.
No,
like you have to actually.
That's the problem. It's the problem when we have been riffing on this for years. Trying to make sense. And
normally we don't agree.
No, we don't agree. But trying to make sense of the world. So this is a little bit like one-sided. I agree. What we have done that you haven't done. Mikael Klingman and we tested these ideas in terms of design principles for agentic AI, and we think it's the same. So because if you think about it, if you're now going to have a team and you're going to have mastery in the team, and you start taking sort of the co-worker metaphor on the AI, how to think about the boundaries, the frames, what is the feedback I need to give to the team? What is the feedback I need to give to the data? We think those fundamental principles around modular scaling that we've been talking about now, you can actually deduce them now down to engineering principles for agentic AI. You would probably use slightly different words to talk with the text. But if I look at it, what's the pattern? What are the patterns here? I think it's the same. What do you think about that? Have you thought about it? Like what we are thinking now, if we're going to use machines as part of our team structures, it's going to be very challenging when we start adding machine flows that is not aligned with the mandates and the views of the teams of people.
We're going to have to align them, otherwise it doesn't work. But I think
Yeah, that was a left curveball. I just want to try that out on you.
Oh, I think we need to work with that as we work with everything else. And I think it's basically to go from linear talent growth
Yeah.
and then take that to exponential productivity per person. And then we're going to have our digital colleagues.
Yeah.
And the digital colleagues in the beginning will be as flawed as us and as show prejudice as anyone else does. And we need to steer and put common denominators and governance on this in order for that to flow, just like we do with people. Is that what you meant?
I think so, because we've been trying to wrap our head around this, because when you're designing an agent, technically you can dream up the world of what they should, they could do this, they could do this, they could do this. And all of a sudden now, we build something that doesn't align with the decision mandates of the organization. Theoretically, someone would tell me, the argument is, of course, why would you limit the AI speed and productivity to the limitations of the AI, of the human limitations? I think it's a matter of safety that you need to go that way in order to then understand, how do I redraw decision mandates of teams and humans, but to just jump it without being in alignment, I think it's super scary. So I think it's a stepping stone to emulate how we are working mandates teams like that.
I think so too.
Then when that is one and together, then you can reinvent with the machine and the man team as one. But
I think you can probably use it differently. I mean, you can use it with no limitations and then stuff them into the decision limitation that we have, or put limits on it. I think what you're referring to is ethical governance.
Yes.
How do we make sure that we align with the corporate's governance structure and also mandates? And of course, I can't build machines and all of a sudden have 2 or 3 times my mandate. It would be lovely, but that would not be okay. No. So I think we need to put, we need to design work, governance, mandate, and human machine teaming with us, and ethical governance on that.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, what is ethical governance? That's something that needs to be an ongoing conversations within a company. And I think that's going to be a tricky one, because it's going to change all the time, because it's going to be more and more sophisticated. And unfortunately, since AI is built on normal human beings with very limited intellectual capacity and sometimes exponential capacity, we're going to get all of it.
Yeah. I think break a little bit here, because we need to think about the time. There's so much more I want to cover, and we can cover more of the example. Now was it some more words, by the way? It was those we went to all of them. I think
we went through all the words.
Those were key words.
We had systematization, which is the personal side is discipline of that. We were working with design and redesign, continuous designing.
Yes.
And we talked about trust. And we also, those are the words that I think you and I have discussed most.
Yes, long time.
Long time. But then I know that all of us we are constantly discussing what's the purpose. What's the purpose for the company, and what's the purpose for...
Purpose-led.
Yeah. But what is that?
Yeah.
Because for some people, it needs to be personal purpose as well into this. And I think we talked about mastery and why that's important to get more... reflections into the pictures and not stay too slim. And how do we make our teams autonomous to work with speed?
I mean, like the only one here where I think we've had a deeper conversation is how to find purpose, right? And one of the examples could be like, I have strong purpose. I own this process now. And this is, for instance, like, is that a good purpose to have in the future when we are redrawing maps all the time? Maybe not. And then we've had the conversation, both you and me have a personality that we love to innovate and drive change. But is that the good, deeper purpose, or is that the personality trait that we love change?
Personality trait,
so, I think so too. So we cannot sit still.
No, we cannot.
Now we get bored.
Yeah. But I'm thinking,
purpose. What is good purpose that is slow moving here now? I think it's a good question.
I think, first of all, why do we need purpose?
And when everything changes around us.
Yeah, and I think purpose for most of us provides some kind of calm and stability. As long as I work towards this, I'm happy. We have purpose in our relationships. We have purpose in, basically everything that we do. But, I do a lot of things without purpose, just for fun of it. So maybe that's not true.
Fun is purpose.
Yeah, fun is purpose, right? And then also how we align ourselves across a team. We are bonding based on that. Yes, please.
But
And I think also it filters the noise.
yes.
Because I think when we don't have a common purpose or the right purpose for us, I think we often we become not stable within. We start to be a bit wobbly, and we have harder time to make decisions. And we also get too much noise in our head. And I think that's okay if you take responsibility over that. But it's easy to come into a team, and when you don't feel those things, you make the team wobbly. So you need to work with every single person in your small team, both what's the overall North Star, but also their purpose, so they can be stable.
Because I can take it all the way down to AI and having a clear AI objective function. What are we here to contribute with? And purpose to me highlights then what is the slow moving dimension that we can now make decisions against when we can potentially do anything. With AI and technology, we could do this, we could do that, and we should listen to that vendor, we should listen to that.
So it's really to cancel out the noise.
So it's to get clarity.
Yeah.
It's to get the Zen. Why are we here? You know, and then then you have the higher enterprise purpose. But we put it down to the core topic of what is the core contribution of our team in relation to the rest.
Yeah.
And we looked at that, me and Mikael. If you design purpose that is too much inward looking, you can drive a purpose that makes you more efficient. We drove down cost here, but you actually become worse and worse in contribution to your neighbor. So we were thinking very, very carefully on they're really the long-standing purpose for any cell is how do I boost the next? How do I boost the reacher? If everybody is thinking about, it doesn't matter how much I cost or what I do, as long as I'm boosting the one using me more. So it's a little bit like finding purpose that is sort of customer centric or even boosting or creating value centric.
Yeah.
And that then means, okay, I'm working in business control. So it's easy to say my purpose is accounting. How can you express business control from the point of boosting, the business?
I think first of all, if you hear business control say they do accounting, they get very upset, Henrik.
Yeah, sorry.
Business control is something completely different.
I know.
But okay.
But you see what I mean?
I see what you mean.
I don't know. Purpose is important as hell.
I think it is important as hell, and I think it is in any relationship that you're in, we should boost each other. And if you try to boost people the way I want to be boosted, you won't get very far. So we need to make sure we know where your psychological safety and how you want to be triggered and boosted.
I don't know, but I think it's simpler than that. That like, if the mission as we as a team have and what makes us really, if that is unclear, I think it's a slippery slope to what is then efficiency? What should you prioritize? How should you build a team? What competences are we missing?
I know. I completely agree. And what I think is when it goes that fast, you need to find a purpose sometimes without knowing the end picture.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
And I think why is it hard? Because if we are continuously designing and redesigning, that means we as a team need to reconfigure ourselves repeatedly. What are we going to do? How are we going to approach it?
And then the purpose needs to be something else than the thing you just reconfigured.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if you put your purpose in the thing that you're reconfiguring, then it becomes a mess.
You become very messy on your identity of that.
Okay, so now we covered purpose as well.
No.
Oh, we need to move on. Sorry.
We've-
This was a good one as well, but because we didn't take that as far. I'm thinking we should either we go example now, or we actually go more towards future outlook, because I think we've been we had the idea when we talked about this that what is becoming even more important in the age of AI, or I think we're going into principles that I think are quite leaning into VUCA and AI ready, but at the same time, I think the future outlook question, the way I framed it with you was like, okay, what we have said now, what we've talked about, we've sort of learned and went this path for 10 years. Yeah, 10 years, more. What is fundamentally different the next 10 years? So should we, I mean, like, it would be nice to take an example, but at the same time, I really want you to elaborate on how you understand scaling in the age. I mean, like the future outlook of what we're doing, because I think some of the ideas of the different things we were exploring, they're quite good.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we have touched upon some of the things that's going to change. We go from efficiency to adaptability and optionality, or personalization, if you will. We go from process standardization to AI native workflows.
But I think all those things, you can say it very fast, but they require their 2-3 minute version. So this is one way of talking about. I also like the way we had, I mean, like we can do the rapid fire on different perspectives of scaling, product view, organizational view, platform view.
Yeah.
Which one should we take? Which should
you choose. I'm game.
Because we're not going to have time for
No. So just take one. I mean, if we look at also the roles that Europe play versus Asia play and versus US.
Yeah, well,
apropos outlook.
we need to some place here scaling and talking a little bit more, long term. Okay, let's do it like this. Let's see if we can do something. This is quite hard. I want to do a rapid fire. I'm going to say a dimension, and how can we think about scaling in a certain perspective. So the logic is this. As a CIO or as a CDO, Chief Data Officer or AI Officer or whatever, tech in relation to business and getting business on board, there are some very basic perspectives that you can think about when we say scaling. Scaling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're gonna try me out now.
So I'm gonna say I'm gonna
shoot.
So, but you only have it's used to elevate the pitch. What's your 2 cents? What's your main pointers? If I say to you, how should you think about scaling product or project? So basically now we have one idea. We want to do a use case from idea. We want to do a workflow, and we want to test that idea. And then when it works, we want to scale that one idea out large scale, 50 markets. So scaling products, scaling project. Like what is your 2 cents on
I
that
have
story?
a very smart employee who told me this, which I think is a good definition. If you're going to scale projects, you actually throw people at tasks. But if you do scaling products, you actually throw tasks at organized teams. And I think that says it all. People don't like to be thrown at things. They like to get sophisticated tasks that they can solve complex problem and start to get better and better and better at it.
So scaling product is literally the way to think about that. And the way to think about that is to have a team structure that can manage whatever product they're building.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Okay, leave it. Scaling organization and at the same, and so there's the point, when you scale organization, it's the chicken and the egg. How do you scale up the budget or the investment in order to scale an organization? Or, what comes first? I know you need to go out and ask for some money in order to set an organization up. And then you need to, scaling organization and scaling up the equivalent investment budget and portfolio. What's your 2 cents on that?
I think you need to break that down to me.
Okay. I mean, like I take the example now. You are starting in one end. This is where we should have done the case. Let's say you have I know we had one case lined up that we could have talked about, the ABS case. If I take that, we start in one end, and we are needing to scale that up.
Asset-backed securities is what ABS stands for. It's a way to diverse our funding strategy.
Because let's do this rapid fire based on ABS. Now we're getting it. Okay, so we have a product. The product is called ABS.
Yeah.
And we need a team to scale it up. We don't want an ABS project.
No.
We want an ABS product.
Yeah.
Two short minutes what it's all about, and then we're going to go through the other ones.
So we are diversifying our fundings
Yep.
like any other bank or financial institution or credit institution. And one way of doing that is to use a product called ABS, where we lend money on our portfolio.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the product, and the point has now been to do a pilot view to make that work. And when that works, and you have it centrally, now you need to scale that out.
Yeah.
So we said first of all product view. Now I go with that. How do you scale the organization, and how do you scale the budget equivalent? Rather, if what's the work, or what is the things to have in mind now to do that successfully? You've done this so many times.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But,
so
but it's hard for people who've never done it.
It is hard. So in the beginning, we just need to do concurrent teams so they can work separately to capitalize on the product that we've created. So we need to scale absolutely the capitalization of the usage. That is, roll it out on more markets, get adoption rate.
So here now, organization-wise, you need to scale out the muscle who can go out and enable and onboard, market onboarding organization muscle.
Yeah. And then we continue to scale our organization for building a more sophisticated product at the same time.
Okay.
So that's sort of two operational models. One is to scale the product in itself and become more and more sophisticated. Like you have on any app, you get new apps and you update them and you get more feature and functions and all that.
So scaling in the use case is on the product itself, and then it's market geo-scaling.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have scaling of people's skill set on how to adopt and take it in.
Yes. Okay. So that now you had scaling. So that was number. So scaling of organization, scaling of the investment, because what you are now building is an engine or a machinery or a staff who can now not only build the product but also take it out in the market. Quite obvious. Yeah.
So my fabulous team that's doing this are scaling. So they have of course, a bucket for the product that they are allowed to decide on within their cross-functional team for that. And then with the product owner of that, which is in our treasury department. And then we also have the capitalization and making sure that we adopt and onboard new markets. That type of bucket is per country.
And how have you, what is the basic navigation or maneuvering or process to get to the funding that you need for each of those steps? You know, what is your 2 cents? Because this is all about scaling, because when you do this, we need more team.
Exactly.
And I find, how should I put this? I think all this is more muddled through than really effective a lot of times in general in industries.
I agree. We muddle through a bit on this, but
This
I
will
think
be clear. It's very simple. We're going to scale in these 3 dimensions. We're going to do this and this.
Yeah.
Why is it muddled through, and what should it be instead?
I think in the beginning you do muddle through to get everybody on board and to understand and to learn, and then you get your really talented business controllers on board.
That helps.
That helps and divides in the buckets, and also make sure that the market knows what they need to pay for. So I think you need to be really good at controlling as well as creating product and adoption.
Yeah,
but you need to isolate it. That's the whole thing, and that's what we call bucket funding.
What do you mean? Decompose it into? Is it clear?
Yeah.
In what is the team structure that can run this?
Yeah, and you also need a specific budget for that part. So you don't mix it up with everybody else and everything else. You really need to make them go autonomous to speed. and
But
then
this is
support
so
that with
hard,
governance.
and people are really muddling through on this, and they
because I
don't know how
think-
to cut the budget. They don't know how to cut the portfolio, and unfortunately, I see more tech people trying to get through on this, and they think they're going to do it on their own. When it's very simple, you can't. You need to work with your controller. You need to sort this out in buckets from the get-go.
Oh, yes. And I must say that when you get a phenomenal controller like ours, who just helps us to set this up, it becomes a really simple Excel sheet where we all can run through and see and follow up. So we follow up really strict, a true up.
Okay, so now, and then you hinted on scaling out new ways of working and change behavior and practices, because with ABS now, it actually it allows us to do different things, but the treasury needs to work in a new way.
Yeah.
And the markets out there need to serve the treasury. You know, it's different for them as well.
It's different from them as well.
So how do you scale that out?
So we have two approaches that we do, and we like one more than the other. So when we have cross-functional teams working on a speed and a budget and a quality level, we're very strict to have all three. Then they are helping us to write the requirements, check on the agile deliverables, and then test it in the end. And once they've done that, they know the process. They're
So this is the systemic
into it.
design, right?
It's
so
the systemic
So
design.
they trust the process. We know it and we do it, and then we've done it once, and then that becomes pattern.
Yeah.
And the pattern is now scalable and repeatable.
Yeah. The problem we have, or the challenge, I shouldn't call it a problem, it's a challenge we have. We are so slim staffed out there, so sometimes we need to help the market. But as soon as we help too much, they don't have the skill set to actually adopt it.
Yeah.
So, but we need to find a slimmer and faster way of how they can interact and test. Not fully automate it either, because that's never good either, but find ways so it becomes a dancing act, really.
Co-creation together.
Co-creation, constant feedback loop, and making sure that also my tech people understand what they need.
Yeah, but thesis. You need then some, in this organizational structure, you need the core platform or product team that really builds the core platform. And you need something else in terms of enablement who will dance with these guys, not to do their job, but in order to hold their hands until it sits and works.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. You cannot do their work.
No.
So you need to have, whoever wants to do this process needs to own it from the local market. It cannot be ownership anywhere else. But that means that we need to support that person so they reuse everything that we have done that's smart. And why do we want them to do that? Because we want them to add new smartness to the table, not invent what we already have. So if you keep giving them a good platform, they can add on smartness to it and not focus on the actual foundation of it.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, scaling out new ways of working, enablement. Boom, bam, solved. Scaling platforms and technologies. One. I mean, like you have such an interesting profile, because on the one hand side you see how to scale out ERP, and on the other side you now see how to scale out data product scaling tech. So so what's your 2 cents? I think it's really important to differentiate the two.
Oh yeah.
And and then talking a little bit more about the data. But could you differentiate them? Because I get so trust when I don't have mature people that knows the difference and trying to do an ERP style rollout on data and AI.
Yeah, I think that ERP is a lot about standardized processes. When you roll out and scale up data products, it's more about how you can have standardized data products that can be shareable immediately, or patterns, or components, or AI or ML components for that matter. And I think governance, compliance, that type, if it becomes Lego pieces, and you can put it together every single time the way that you need it in the speed that you need.
And I think this is maybe it's that simple. That as long as you work with ERP, you are standardizing on process level, and you're trying to hard code it into a standardized process, and that's how it should work.
At least as much common denominators standardization as possible.
And then I think the misconception is that when you come to data, you cannot standardize because it's all custom. But what happened now is that what you are extremely standardized, but on much lower technical levels in terms of patterns.
Yeah.
And then you are very standardized in your innovation to adoption approach.
Yeah.
So you build, instead of having the governance built into the ERP process, the governance is built into the product development lifecycle or the innovation adoption lifecycle. The standards are built into your hardcore data sharing protocols and data governance stuff.
Yeah.
So
it becomes modular pieces more than process pieces.
It becomes modular pieces that is then where we come back to the point of discipline. That if you don't do that properly, it doesn't work. But if you do it properly, it scales. And
here you need like a wonder kid on the block, and I certainly have caught one of those.
The problem is, how do we get people to keep the discipline across? Because I think we are cheating ourselves. We're shooting ourselves in the foot over and over again when it comes to standardization and scaling platforms. We're not scaling platforms, by the way. We're building point solutions in the same vendor.
Yeah.
You see the difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
So slow down. Patterns is one thing where we are extremely standardized. I can put them patterns in AWS or Azure or Snowflake or whatever. And then, we all have Snowflake, so now it's great. Yeah, but you all used it differently.
Yeah.
So you have point solutions using the same vendor.
Yeah.
What have you achieved? Very little.
Yeah. Because I think we need to have reusability. That's the key word.
That's the key word here.
Everything we can reuse is good. Yeah. That was more than 2 minutes, Mister.
But now we took an example and we took the key topics of product perspective, organization perspective, investment perspective, ways of working perspective, platform perspective. Not bad. Not bad.
Have we solved the world now?
We've solved the world, so we have solved Data Innovation Summit at least. Okay, let's go to future outlook. And I framed it when we were discussing what will be different in how we think and work with scaling the next 10 years versus how we worked with it the last 10 years. And I added something. Because in between the lines now, the whole conversation is we're following that with the book and all that. The hint is this. Are we saying that the core objective function, what we should work towards, has fundamentally shifted? We are coming from scaling, understood from efficiency and economies of scale as the number one objective. And now we have flipped to the main objective of scaling is adaptability and flexibility.
Yeah.
Because this is sort of the entry point to what's scaling the next 10 years. Yeah. Do you agree with that?
I agree fundamentally. So if you're stuck on efficiency, you will never be able to take any of the emergent technologies in its appropriate way. You will only get very slim results with that.
Okay, so if we're baseline that, so then how is this different and play out differently moving forward now? And this is what I like now, because you've been a very diligent guest that you actually gave me some ideas that we could talk about. So so I'm just giving the listener, this is Helena's brilliance, not mine. And you did, and I really want to go through them because you did the future outlook exploration, and then boom, you gave me an email back. Boom. I'm not sure if it was you or ChatGPT, but that's I'm sure it was you. But I'm just going to read the list out, and I think we should pick them apart a little bit. Maybe
I don't know what I've written now, so I'm very curious.
No. But you gave me from efficiency to adaptability and optionality as a key heading, as a key word. And then you said from process standardization to AI native workflows. And then you said from organizational scaling to ecosystem scaling. Then you said from linear talent growth to exponential productivity per person. There's so many good topics here. From centralized decision making to distributed autonomy. From long planning cycles to always on experimentation. From standard change management to human-centric transformation. From internal data to shared and synthetic and real-time data.
We haven't talked about that.
No, we haven't talked about. So we have touched a couple of these now. What I liked with this is sometimes when you do this before after, like the Agile Manifesto was set up the same way, it gives a feeling to what we're talking about. We are moving from here to here in the way of thinking. We're not going to pick apart all of them, so let's pick our favorites. I think there's a couple here that I really want to talk about. I think we need to take a little bit more time on from linear talent growth to exponential productivity per person.
Yeah,
because this is something that's an interesting one, and it lives on the us as individuals, and as teams and as enterprises. So I'm just picking one of them. So this is one of the angles of how to think about scaling that you put down here. That are, we have so much content here. If you want it,
no, but let's stick to that one.
Let's start there. I mean, let's maybe do 5 minutes, and then we see how many we can do.
I think that we have been way too narrow-minded in how we think about talent and talent development. I think with the new type of emergent technologies that we have, we don't talk about, I mean, I literally took on Copilot for 2 weeks and I could improve myself 20%. Add 20% of the capacity, take away, if you will. But I also realized if I do a bit more, I took away another 20. But I think if we use it right and we use agents and build them specifically for my own need, maybe I can become 100%, 200% of myself. That means something so exciting that we have time left to connect as people. It's almost like primary, secondary, and tertiary research that we have the basis laid out in front of us. Now it's our turn to connect and see how we can use those insights to do something much bigger. And I think also with the hybrid workplace, people need to come in and connect. They don't need to come in and read through a piece of paper and sit on their own corner. They need to discuss, connect, and grow. So I think it's two pieces there. It's for us to get back to human beings to connect and well-being, but it also, with the AI and all the tools that we have there, we don't have to look at 100% capacity or 40 hours a week. We can have 20 hours a week in capacity for 300%.
Yeah. This lines up really well with the philosophy of first horizon and second horizon AI that Matthias Frost was onto. And even Scania is doing this as well, where we're looking at horizon one is about the personal productivity frontier. You're not really doing enterprise grade workflows yet.
No.
But this becomes really important because what you said now, and I even before the pod, we were talking about this privately, me and Goran, around how we are extending ourselves as CEOs for different companies and how we are basically now building our agents around us. Has nothing to do with our core workflows. It's more about how we compartmentalize our CEO jobs in different ways in order to basically build our, what is it you call it, Goran? G2. He's G1. And he's creating G2.
Yeah. But Goran, we want actually G2, G3, G4 as well.
No. That's another level. They are called Henry, Harvey. What's your name?
No, I have different.
He's GPTs, right? He's GPTs.
Yeah.
And so this is then what we're talking about. This is not about replacing a little bit about work here and work there. It's about extending yourself. And it's about building yourself as a team.
Yeah.
But you are taking, in some ways, personal responsibility for it. This will then be something else in Horizon 2 when we go into enterprise-grade workflows. Yeah. But this is the first step.
Yeah.
And the way I think what you said now, one of the reasons why we need to do it is to have more slack to think and more slack to connect with people.
Yes.
So it's like, as you said, we are so slim now. So when we are slim, we don't have time to think and to innovate.
No.
So this is about creating the slack for us as humans to move up in the abstraction level in order to work with innovation, reflection, thinking.
Yeah.
So we need thinking doers, was Mattias' favorite expression. And how do I create a thinking doer of myself when I don't have it in Slack? This is what we're talking about.
So how do you create room for the next wave?
Exactly.
But I think
Lovely.
it's not just the next wave. I think this is here to stay.
I think this
We will have expectations on our employee that's far exceeding what they do today.
Yeah, and this is the problem, right? Because if everybody doesn't understand that this is the same logic as when you said, you kind of need to know how to use a PC.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you think about it, using a computer to not using a computer, that sort of 10 times our productivity. It's the same thing again.
Yeah.
It's not different.
But when we started university, you didn't even need a computer the first year. You borrowed at the university and all of that. It's so funny.
Computer lab. We were sitting there on Macs. Remember that? Okay, so that's a good one. Let's keep that one. Which one? I mean, like organizational scaling to ecosystem scaling. We kind of touched upon it.
Yeah, we have touched upon that.
Okay. We haven't said so much from internal data to shared data. We haven't said so much about that.
Let's talk about that because I think that's a super interesting one. And to be fair, there's probably a whole program we should use for this. So let's do a cliffhanger and see where you invite another smart person to discuss this. This is a truly, truly, truly interesting topic. Do you want to start? I think we all have ideas on how we approach this. So we can basically say that in the past we rely on BA dashboard, historical data. We had siloed data. We extracted them in different ways, and now, of course, we talked about data mesh. We don't have to talk about that right now here, but we also can use synthetic data.
We can use other ways, yeah.
Industrial data that we buy in. We can do digital twins of ourselves or other people. We can do power scaling in a completely different way.
Okay, so my angle here. I mean, like we even had this was the keynote. This was the day 1 or day 2 keynote of Data Innovation Summit, but we were referring and talking about this as the intelligence plane. You know, so basically we are saying this is going for anyone interested, want to go nerdy. This goes all the way back to cybernetics thinking and feedback loops and the fundamental topic of how to develop intelligent or intelligence is hard to define, but we can always talk about intelligent behavior in an ecosystem or in an enterprise, is that whatever you're doing is functioning effectively in relation to everybody else. So you get to a point where you have a process plane, which is the transactional flow, the linear flow of goods or whatever, and we're going to now have a credit contract, blah, 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 you know. So that's the linear flow. When it comes to people and humans and how teams work and how we really make decisions, from very operational decision to very strategic one, it doesn't live in the process flow, it lives in the intelligence flow. It's feedback. And in a normal organization, those feedbacks is anything from email to phone to something in data like this, but it's a human it's a human game. All that needs to be encoded. All that needs to be data and encoded data. So you have a completely different ball game of how these things that is the normal interaction needs to be encoded. Why? Because one of the co-workers in the team or the whole team is AI. And all of a sudden then the AI doing their job needs exactly the same feedback loops as you and me as people needs to make decisions. So this is huge, right? So that it means nothing is internal data anymore. What do you mean internal data? It's not that simple. Internal data in one silo. Internal data is all of... So you need to have perfect signal flow of every data piece in Scania. That's insane, right?
I think that's insane. So break that down so people understand what that means.
No, because it's a little bit philosophically, I would argue like this. If I should build a perfect brain, intelligent brain of Scania, do I envision that as some sort of monolithic central brain in the middle and then use everything else is dumb? Or do I envision it as a hive mind? So each and every cell is intelligent, and what makes the greater more intelligent than the part is a perfect transparency and signal flow. So the way data flows from signals flow from the lowest cell to the brain and back makes us intelligent.
Yeah.
And what I mean with that is that
The human body, really.
the human body, right? Because if you think about it, if you look at the enterprise as an organism, the latency of making decisions on the top for every little micro decision on the bottom won't fly. So everybody needs to autonomously be able to, within their context, make decisions. Those decisions that they made has consequences for the rest of the body.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now we need to have a signaling system where I made this decision now. Oh, we're having a shortage of semiconductors.
Yeah.
So now I made this decision to, and that has the whole chain of order to delivery has impact on that.
Yeah.
So orchestration then becomes fundamentally signals data that needs to be at real time shaping each other.
Yeah.
So this is cybernetics, right?
Yeah.
And this is we then call that the intelligence plane, that we can now understand all the work we're doing as decision data workflows, as to put a label on it, very operational or very strategic. We have what is the decision data workflow around the strategic investment planning of Scania? Is one here, which is many different cells underneath, and then you can have what is the decision data workflow around the incidents when we have a shortage in one of our suppliers?
Yeah.
All this is different signals that has impact around each other. So from internal data to shared real-time data, even synthetic or whatever things, in order to understand that we make as good decisions in relation to whatever. This can be very, very granular. It's a fractal problem, right?
Yeah, it is.
To me, that's what it means. I mean, like, so now I spun my angle onto it. I don't know. You can take it back.
No, I think it's fine. I think we've spent a lot of time about it, but it's really about forecasting.
Yeah.
What's happening in every cell.
Yes.
Or in communicating.
Yeah.
So
and it's both ways, by the way.
Both ways.
Yeah, both ways.
So the signal system and the simulation goes all the way in and back. And I think what we did before is just to base everything on history. Now we need to base it on everything that we know going forward as well. And we simulate.
But this becomes the nervous system. And I argue that the nervous system is not the report in the old way. It's the real-time human connection. The report is helping the human nervous system to make these decisions and to understand the world. And it's limited data, it's fragmented data, and it's reporting data that is stale and old.
Yeah.
And we are now needing to figure out that nervous system encoded in real data.
Yeah, it is. And I think in any case, doesn't matter if it's our internal data or not, data is everybody's business.
Yeah.
And how we set up the analysis models is everybody's business.
Yeah.
So it becomes something very... it should be on everybody's top agenda, no matter where you work.
Yeah, and we now then need to understand who is working on it and how are they working on it on the platform level. And then, of course, when we get to the real data and decisions, the real decision data work, that sits right in the workflow. Yeah,
I think so. But I think if we summarize what you just said with everything that you said, it is that connecting ourselves gives us leverage.
Yes.
And even more so, getting the external data in becomes a true competitive differentiator for anyone.
Yeah.
It's how we combine it and make insights on it. So from internal data to shared, synthetic and real-time, both external and synthetic data.
And by the way, that will be the fuel for any AI we want to bring in.
Yeah, that would be the fuel for any AI we will bring in.
Okay.
It's so true.
But then we are always up on 2 hours. I wanted to take a couple of macro questions. And if we now talk about, we've talked a lot about the scaling dimensions. I asked the listener to a little bit think about all the dimensions we are talking about, credibility, trust, all this and those things. Can we say something about this new type of scaling and these dimensions we just discussed? what do they mean for Sweden and Europe in the age of AI? What do we need to do differently if we want to scale up and be successful in the age of AI? And what I mean with scaling up, it can be many different things. It can be to scale out on the productivity frontier, industrializing the use of data and AI. But more importantly is to have thriving, scaling businesses at large in this age, when everybody needs to then grow or deal with this.
Yeah.
Even the public sector needs to, in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we have a shortage of people going in retirement soon, so we need to scale up. We need to be able to produce less with more there too, right?
Yeah. Everywhere.
So, any thoughts on this more macro view on what becomes important or what we should think about?
I mean, of course, everybody who hears the word Europe hears regulation.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to regulate. It's going to be heavier, but hopefully we can ask and request them to do it smarter.
Yeah.
Not just, black and white forbidding, but rather tell us how we can apply it in a smarter way. I also welcome, if it's possible, to have labs somewhere where we can actually try out things without getting punished for it. So certain sectors that we need to move faster, it can be diagnostic, for example. It could be schools obviously have to adapt to the AI world. What is learning going to look like in the future, and what would that be, etc. But I also hope that we can put at scale the human, more intelligent version of this to get help in our workforce, because we are way too many old people in comparison to workers. So I don't think we can't handle that on ourselves. And if we look at China and if we look at the US, they're way before us on this one. Yeah. So see if we can at least find labs in Europe so we can go crazy a bit on this one.
But let me test one angle that I think ties into this. And actually, I'm triangulating what we are talking about here with what we talked about with Nordea last week. Because many of these things, when we want to move fast or move smoother, comes down to, from a regulation point of view, legal uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I could argue that even while we move slower or faster inside our enterprises, we could we proved that within Nordea that a lot of times, if you want to do proper innovation with proper governance, so as Matthias said it, if I want to do innovation without governance, I should work in a startup. if I want to do innovation in a bank of Nordea size, I need to embrace governance.
Yeah.
What it means with that is a systemic design,
Yeah.
and the process. We need to trust the process, and then he says, legal uncertainty on regulatory is one thing. We don't know what good looks like or how we should do it. To some degree, we have the same problem within the enterprise. We don't know what good looks like, or different functions argue, or the security function says you should do it this way.
Yeah.
The other guy did it that way. So all this boils down to what I think is some of your core principles. We need to be way better at systemic design. We need to be way better at continuous redesign. And those kind of principles, your key words, how do you get them into EU? How do you get them into, that's equally important.
Yeah, it is.
And even in Sweden, right?
Yeah, it is.
Because we are now talking about the AI strategy of Sweden. We need to do this and this and this and that. And I hear people talking about investing the money in the infrastructure, and we need to build this and this. And I've been trying to get my foot in the door on a couple of things because I want to talk about your principles. I want to talk about your way of looking at steering, because I think it's a blind spot in the whole conversation.
Yeah.
So we are not fixing the fundamental design of the arena. We are just trying to push in more money or more tech, but we haven't fundamentally redrawn those principal ideas.
Yeah.
What do you think about that rant? That's a rant, of course. But that's how I'm connecting back to what you said. What we need to have labs, and we need to have regulation. We're going to do regulation. But the problem is that we don't know how to. If I knew how to navigate it wouldn't be a problem.
No, and I think we need to navigate this with advisors to the people who put the regulatory frameworks in place.
They need to know more about how this really works, right?
They need to know more about how this really works. And I think we need to, as corporates, also lend out people to that. and see how we can solve certain things.
Co-create.
Yeah, co-create. And I think we need to really look at the societal values and see if we can solve them together across Europe as well. But I think we need to be also good at working closer. If we can't work closer to China, we could actually work closer to India. That's speeding up this quite a lot.
I have one core topic, which is almost like a cliffhanger for another pod. I mean, like there's a couple of pods or discussions that I've had with you over the years that we have had them in the pod here as well. But with you particularly, we've had this conversation. And I mean, like we can see in Sweden and Europe that we have a strong startup scene in all this.
Yeah.
But I would argue we are not so good at hyperscaling. And even the hyperscalers that we have seen come out of Sweden, like Spotify and all them, eventually they're more American. I mean, like it's the American venture capital that sort of takes over, and then we go that way. Or even when we do an IPO, sometimes we decide to do the IPO in US if we're big enough. And if you now go more closely into this and looking at the VC or the PE industry and large enterprise, how we think, because I think the Swedish and to some degree European legacy is scaling through large industrials like Scania, like Ericsson, like Bosch, like Mercedes, right? That's the backbone of European the European industrial complex or something like that. So just to make it interesting, everybody complains that, we don't have the right capital in place. And okay, so let's take that out of the equation, because
that's a whole topic.
That's a whole topic in itself. And I think it's quite obvious that right now we don't know how, we are not able to manage to muster the capital or compete. I mean, like when you can get 10 times amount for your company in US, why wouldn't you, right? But if I take that thing in its own, I just take that off the table, what other mechanisms or what other things should we work on in Europe? If I'm a PE person or a VC person, or if I'm working in enterprise,
you can probably not hyperscale in Sweden. We have too few people. So you need to, if you're going to scale, you still need to use other markets. But I think we need to find ways to scale smarter.
Yeah.
And depending on what that is and what kind of product you have, it's more personalized, or it can be used in many fields. Like a lot of the old NASDAQ technology went straight into the technology of gambling.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. And that technology later came into gaming. So how do you move your technologies into different areas? So I don't have answers on how to scale, because that depends on the actual profitability model.
But something we talked about in the past, and I think we actually talked about it on this pod as well. The dynamics of scaling in Europe is, of course, not one central market.
No.
So if you look at the place, the game, that sort of, China takes the approach, we are implementing AI. And they have sort of a way to use code that way. And America still has enough one market so they can sort of scale up an innovation and then, forget about the regulation, go hard and break things, as the Meta, as Zuckerman said. In Europe, our playing field is distributed.
Yeah.
And I get it. I always get I'm thinking about how you are talking about this. How can we do central muscle in terms of enterprise muscle in Traton Financial Services, and at the same time be very, very flexible and making something work for a very small local market. So that whole bimodal idea, that whole thing, that is in the DNA of what you need to think about on a daily basis. I think that is somewhere here. It's like what a European model.
Yeah.
That is something else.
I don't know if it's absolutely something else. Let's just make that clear. I think if you take it from another perspective, customers, we as human beings have almost the same problems to be solved.
Yeah.
So as consumer goods, I think it's easier to approach us as humans.
Okay.
But when it comes to making business in certain fields, it's more local than it's European.
So you think, what do you say, global, think global, act local.
Yeah.
And that is you cannot get away from that in Europe, I think.
No, I don't think you can. But if we take Spotify, for example, it goes straight to consumers.
Okay, they have some
Facebook
regulation.
goes straight to consumers. So I think the hyperscalers are more consumer-based. Unless you can take a consumer product like payment and make it into companies as well.
So it also becomes an interesting topic, hyperscaling in the terms of B2B to B2C. So, but Klarna then, what are they B2B or B2C company?
Both.
They're
I
both,
would
right?
say. Yeah, and payment flows is a bit different from...
Because you have a global banking system.
We have a global banking system, but I think they have gamed it. So they take care of it all behind the scenes. So it's really how they connect their ecosystem and how they grow through their ecosystem, apropos scaling in ecosystems.
But then you have also some sort of, you can learn a lot from looking at the Klarna model in terms of how they took the ecosystem and how they created something way simpler as a way to go to the local market or the local small enterprise shop and still make it work. Yeah.
And I think that's how we learn. We have to go, we can't look in our own industry only. We need to look cross industry to learn more.
Right. Interesting topic. Let's see if we should have a panel on that.
We should have a panel on that.
You need a panel on that because you need a couple of different perspectives when you discuss that question.
We do. Yeah. So we should invite PE people in and...
Goran.
I have a panel.
We want to have a panel on these topics. We need to figure that out for next year.
I have a panel.
So you have a panel, and you need to invite her to that panel.
Yeah.
I think we should wrap up.
Yep.
You remember the last time when we had this, we also ended up with a panel.
That's good. I like when we do pods that helps us book the next pods. That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so that's a good question. Actually, we always forget to ask the question. I have two wrap-up questions now. I'm going to go straight to the crunch. We have a very standardized question that almost is like a poll or like a research. We have asked the same question now for at least 50 to 100 guests, and we just want to see how people think about that. It's the pod's final standard question. So I'll take that first, and then I will do a bonus final question after that. So 2 questions left. So the final question is all the way out into the AGI space. You know, however you want to define AGI, do you think we're going in that direction? Do you think this is science fiction, or do you think eventually we will get to some sort of view where we have AI out there that is equivalent of any human worker doing any human working task? At least, I mean, like you can think about this as office work in the digital space, and then even beyond in the physical space, like robots. Do you believe that we will see that at all, or is so no time?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And not too far away from the future, but I don't think in every single space.
No, but we definitely further. Okay, so if we put that AGI topic here, and then I draw out a spectrum. So how would that world look like in 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years? And the spectrum is, of course, then you have the AI doomers and dystopian view here, that everything goes to shit, and we have the Terminator and Skynet world, or all the way to utopia, a life of abundance, those pictures. So we have Nick Bostrom, we have Max Tegmark, we have many different thinkers, philosophers who've been talking
I think
about
we're somewhere in between. We're going to have some really destructive side of this, and we will have some really fantastic sides of it.
Yeah, and so you are saying both?
Yeah, of course.
Oof, I like that, because my core question is a little bit like, where on the spectrum do you put yourself? So that was my step 1.
Yeah, so I ended up saying both.
Yeah, you together with Sverker Jansson, head of AI research at RISE, and a couple of others, I share that view as well. We have always through society have the richest and the poor, and we have had the wars over here, and we've had the so to think about a world in perfect abundance or perfect harmony or perfect, it doesn't work like that. So both, right? So then my core question is, how can we make sure that we are gravitating towards the good, or how can we in everything, what is your recipe to think to be a contributor for good, AI for good?
Henrik, if I could solve that question, we would solve the world's biggest and finest questions. I have no clue, but I hope we do more of the good things.
Yeah.
I hope we fill up our world and people's worlds with more of the good.
Yeah. My simple answer to that is that it's up to us to shape what good looks like. It's up to us to take the good fight in every micro topic we do.
Yeah.
From the smallest thing we build, that we build it right, ethically, to, thinking about pushing the lawmakers in the right way, stuff like this. But in every single step. Anyway, love that answer, Double. It's both. Final question then. If you were to invite someone to the pod, or someone you would like to see in the pod on a topic, or someone you think we should have on the pod, do you have any recommendations for us?
I have many recommendations, but does it have to be a Swedish person, or should be a Swedish person?
It should be someone who can travel. We prefer to do it physically, so that's the only limitation.
Yeah.
We have no problem having someone coming joining us here, but it's more about what is feasible.
I don't know if I have a specific name, because there's quite many, but I would really like to see AI in creation of arts.
AI in art. We've had that.
Yeah.
Had a couple of them.
There's a Finnish carpet maker that's done fantastic carpets with AI. But I also think that music, and see how we incorporate that. I mean, what is it? 30% of Spotify's music is made by AI? I don't know.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those angles.
30 is a stretch a bit.
30 is a stretch.
So I'm glad you're saying it. I'm stretching it and exaggerating. So thank you. Yeah.
No, but AI in arts, AI in music, stuff like that would be interesting, yeah?
Would be interesting.
Yeah.
The good bits about AI.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, and we will maybe talk a little bit after work. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.